Let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zephyr's Adjusted for Risk podcast from the shores of Lake Tahoe. We have another great show lined up for you today. With the generational wealth transfer upon us, it brings many questions and concerns to the forefront, especially the parents who care about keeping their family and values together, their legacy, and making sure their heirs are taken care of while trying to minimize the amount of their estate that goes to Uncle Sam. Well, my next guest is an award-winning and expert in the space of trust and estates, and one that will be able to help us with this hot topic. But first, today's episode is sponsored by the award-winning Zephyr, which helps investment professionals make more informed investment decisions. All right, enough from me. Let's get on to the start of the show. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'd like to give a very warm welcome to David Handler. David is a partner in the Trust and Estates Practice Group of Kirkland and Ellis. David, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's an honor to have you on. I'm really excited about this conversation. Can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself and the Trust and Estates Practice Group at Kirkland and Ellis?
Sure. So Kirkland is one of the largest firms in the world, over 4,000 attorneys. The trust and estates practice, I think of as a boutique within a very large firm. We're about 10 attorneys, which is fairly typical for this practice. We don't need 20 people on a deal. It's individual families, one at a time. I've been practicing for over 30 years, so I'm beginning to catch on to how this works. I work with high net worth families by any definition of that, however you might measure that around the country.
Fantastic. I often talk about the important role of financial plays in the life of a client. Financial advisor can oftentimes be the center of influence on many topics, whether it's, taxes, tax planning, obviously investment management, maybe insurance, healthcare, and also then estate planning. What role can financial advisors play in the estate planning process for their clients?
So there's a few roles. First, they might be the one to point out to the client that they need an estate plan in the first place, or they need to revisit it, or they need to update it, whatever it may be. They're the ones on the front lines. They're seeing the client's assets on a daily or weekly or monthly, whatever it may be, basis as they increase, decrease due to spending and earning, as they increase, decrease due to investment performance, all of those things. I'm not going to see those on a daily basis. I don't have a feed into my clients' balance sheets. And so first of all, they can be the first one to say, you should do these things and we can help you find someone, or maybe you have someone already. So that's a huge service to those clients, minute one. Beyond that, they're part of the team. I need to know, well, what are the assets? Are they liquid? Are they illiquid? What's the plan? Are they, just because you have a bunch of cash doesn't mean it's staying in cash. Maybe the plan is to deploy that into some private equity fund or something else that's illiquid. So we need to know what's the plan going forward so we can figure out what's the wealth transfer plan going to look like. If they want to transfer wealth, what are the best assets? Help us identify those, then ultimately help us implement. I can write the trusts, I can recommend the plan. I can't make the actual transfers. They can produce the documents and get the OKs and get the approvals to move assets from person A to trust B or whatever it is. And then they could also help on the ongoing maintenance. So we put something into place. It doesn't mean you close your eyes and never look at it again. We need, just like they're monitoring their investments, we need to see, so how's it doing the following year, the year after? Are there adjustments that we can make to improve it, to lock in gains, to, whatever it may be as things change and evolve?
Interesting. I'm really glad you brought that up, David, because that was one of my questions. Is this like this partnership between you or a trusted an estate attorney and the financial advisor and the client? Is it, just a one-time thing? Once that estate plan is complete, we're like, see you, bye. Or like I said, it's an ongoing relationship. Does that look like, annual meetings, or is it like when maybe there's a life change with the client and the family? What's that relationship look like?
Yeah, it's typically ongoing, but how frequent is going to depend on the client situation. A client that doesn't have an estate tax exposure, they're worth $1 million, for example. There's no tax issues. They're probably not going to do wealth transfers,
Mhm.
but still keeping their plan current and up to date. If there's been a new marriage, a divorce, another child, again, it doesn't mean the plan will change. Maybe it says divide all among all my children. Your child's included already. But those are good touch points to get back in touch. There's
Mhm.
been a change in family, there's been a change in wealth. They're moving to another state. It's at least a conversation. And sometimes there's no change needed. It's like, great, good to know, got your new address, got the new spouse, whatever it is. In other cases, it will impact the plan. So again, they're a great source for that. And then it can be ongoing if it is a larger estate and they are doing wealth transfers um, and gift exemptions increase. Well, we could do more. Let's follow up. So it's good to touch base. It again depends on the situation. In some cases, we're working on something ongoing, so we're talking all year until that gets implemented. Then it might be a yearly checkup. In other cases, it might be every few years. But again, if there's been some vast change in wealth or family circumstances, we definitely want to touch base.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So it's a lot like, yeah, being a financial advisor and that communication, ongoing communication to make sure the life, their financial plan or investment objectives either are the same or if they're evolving, making sure that the financial advisor and their team knows about it.
That's right.
During that initial conversation with clients or potentially a prospect, financial advisors, they go through that fact-finding exercise. They're learning more about the client's family, their values. A lot of it's about investment goals or financial objectives, putting their kid through college or buying a house or retiring um, and other things that are most important to the client. What is one of the most important topics or maybe questions financial advisors should consider when they're having the initial conversation about estate planning? Is it like a similar conversation or should they be asking different questions when they're kind of doing that fact finding regarding estates?
Um, so they can be a huge help and a time saver, therefore fee reduction, translate, by doing a lot of the work. So sometimes I'll get a client referral or just someone we're working with a common uh, financial advisor. And if they send us, here's the family, here's the addresses, here's the birth dates, here's the financial statement, here's the liquidity, that matter, here's some projections of where we think things are going to go or some big expenditures that are coming up. That saves a lot of time. Those are things that I would need to know anyway. And
Mhm.
so now we have that. They might also get into the conversation about what are your goals? Is the goal to leave everything to spouse and then equally to
Yep.
children, to charity, or other family members? Um, I think the high level discussion of goals is helpful. As soon as you get start to get any deeper, I like to be on that conversation because there's things that they may, whatever they convey is, hey, here's our goals. I'm gonna have follow-up questions to that. And so at some point, I need to be brought in the conversation. Um, the worst way to work with with a financial advisor and estate planning attorney is, and this has happened, many times, and I have others that are great, but they come to us with, "Hey, we've got a client, and we already figured out the plan, and here's what they want to do, and here's the trustees, and here's the guardians, and here's the age when the kids can get the money," and doesn't work that way. It's like I analogize. Okay, go to the surgeon and say, "So we already figured out, Mr. Heart Surgeon, that they need this. So just do this." No, they need to do their own diagnosis, do their own work, come to their own judgments, ask their much more detailed questions. Most likely, I may have a difference of opinion on, oh, if that's what you want to do, I would do it this way. So when you
Okay.
get to that level we need to be part of the conversation. Otherwise, we're just going to be going back to the client, backtracking. I don't want anyone to look bad or anything else. So let's work on it collectively and then bring that to the client.
Interesting. I love that you brought up the comparison to a physician. I often think like the internet sometimes has an issue and like this too. Like I could be like, well, estate planning. I'll just Google it and then find out some information. Oh, I need to know this or that, and we're set, right? And then go to you and be like, this is what we have. But it's not that easy.
Yeah, I have had a client call me out of the blue. So I need a trust. I read about it. It's like just a trust, huh? Any particular type, any particular goal.
Yeah.
They've read something. I'm all in favor of people educating themselves.
Yeah.
I'll fill in a lot more detail, but getting a head start and knowing what you're asking and they're trying to educate is all better.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Just like you said, education is great, but leave it up to the experts like yourself to really help out and get what we need. Can you provide tip? We talk about the generational wealth transfer, and it doesn't even have to be that, just any type of transferring of wealth. Um, can you provide any tips of families when planning to transfer wealth? Is it, when should the conversation start with their kids or the heirs or just with the spouses? Like, should they start early or later, those conversations? Where do you begin?
Yeah, a lot goes into that. I mean, first there's the do you want to transfer wealth? Uh, Is it because you want to, because you want to help out your kids? Are you doing it because you want to help out your kids in general, but it's really to reduce future gift and estate taxes? Um, what is your personal net worth? What are you able to give away, comfortably and not leave yourself calling me or your financial advisor saying, we gave away so much money, now we don't have enough. I never want to be in that position. They don't want to be in that position. Um, and then there's, aside from what they could objectively give away, what are you comfortable giving away? There's a difference between the two. If some clients, if they left themselves with less than $50 million, that would not be a good day.
Yeah.
Just based on comfort, sleeping, lifestyle expenditures, and other people obviously can live on far, far less than that. So it's first is the threshold of what are you comfortable giving away, then it's what should we give away, then it's how do we give it away? Typically, it would be to a trust for multiple reasons: credit protection, tax reasons, control over the assets, usually number one. And then working out what are those trust terms going to be? Who should be the trustee? Is there a point in time when your kids should get the money or simply get control of their own trusts at a certain age? That answer could be different between the children, different circumstances. You know, for a variety of reasons. And then last is what you're getting at the beginning was communication. Um, so I tell my clients, especially if you're very wealthy, your kids know. The word is the jig is up. We see
Some
the
kids,
house,
like my son, might think we're wealthier than what we are, too.
right? We see the homes, we see the planes, the boats, the cars, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The trips, the lifestyle. Now, there are people that live beyond their means and they're totally in debt, whatever it might be. But people can also, your kids can Google you. Oh, if you're that successful, there's probably something out there. So they have a sense. It doesn't mean they really know. I've had clients, the kids think, yeah, our parents might have $10 million, when in actuality it's hundreds of millions. Yeah,
Mhm.
the lifestyle difference between the two isn't always that significant. So one, they have an idea, but I think number two is educating them on two things. One, what's your plan? What are the expectations? Are we going to leave this all to you? When do we think we're going to do that? Is this, hey, when we're gone, you'll get it and you'll be 65, so you better work for the next 45 years? Or is it, we're here to help you? And most people don't know that answer.
Yeah.
It's, I pose that to clients and they're, I'm not sure. They have an idea. Yeah, we don't want them homeless. If they're living in an expensive city and can't afford a place in a safe neighborhood, we want to help them with that.
Yeah.
God forbid they have a health issue, so, but where does that end? What does that look like? Um, so figuring that out, starting to convey that to their children. It may not mean disclosing the whole family, treasure. It may be, we've said we have some money, we can help you with some things. Setting those expectations. We expect you to go to school, we expect you to work or something, whatever it is, do something with your life. Um, and people have different answers to that.
Yeah.
And then the second part of education is educating them about money in general. So, I was a finance major and I always followed stocks and it was just something I always did. But my kids, they take any econ, finance, that wasn't their path.
Hmm.
They don't know about this stuff and nobody teaches it. Maybe there's some consumer ed class in high school, but who's remembering that? And so really educating your children about investments. There are many investment firms, financial advisors that provide these services to families. They have classes or whatever it may be for generation two and generation three to educate them. What is the stock market? What are indexes? What are bonds? Why do they go down when rates go up?
Yep.
Uh, what are mutual funds? To you and me, this may sound basic, but if you've never learned it, there's no reason you would know it.
Yeah.
And what is long-term investing and why is compounding good? All those things. So just educating them so they know one day when you're not here, they know what questions to even ask of their trustee, and how to make sure the money lasts. Because it's earning it once is a great thing. Earning it twice, it may not happen again.
Mhm.
Once it's gone, it may be gone forever.
David, I could not agree with you more on that education piece. I think it's something that's desperately needed. Maybe while you're talking about that, it's something like, gosh, maybe we should be doing something more, right? Trying to help. Because that I feel is the biggest issue when they get this sum of money. They don't know what to do with it and they blow it. They, make bad investment decisions that maybe they might read on Reddit or the internet again,
Right.
right? Or
If you
something.
give a
So I
hundred
can't
thousand
agree
dollars,
with you more there.
yeah, if you give $100,000 to a 20-year-old, it might as well be a million. From
Yeah.
their perspective, that's just a massive amount of money. They're working this summer, they're going to make $4,000 the whole summer. Here's $100,000 tax free. Just imagine you can
Yeah.
get in a lot of trouble, you can do a lot of good, they can save it. And so just imagine if it's not $100,000, but it's a million or it's 10 million. They will think that it is unlimited. 10 million is not airplane money, as I call it. They
Mhm.
may think so, but it's not. You can fly first class, not private jet money.
Yeah.
But the money can go quickly if you don't understand how it works and how in budgeting and even for super wealthy people.
Yeah. Just setting expectations, whether
Right.
that is between the family setting expectations or the financial advisor in the family or yourself and the family or is there, as a financial advisor, we're talking about kind of timing and that communication. If I'm a financial advisor, how do I determine when is a good time to talk about estate planning? Is there kind of like a point in their life and this lifestyle or money that a financial advisor should be like, oh, we should get a state attorney in here and have this conversation?
I'd say it's day one, and I'm not saying that out of self-interest. I got plenty of clients that keep me busy, but it's day one because everyone needs a will. If you are
Hmm.
married and have children and you die without a will, your assets are going to go partly to your children and partly to your spouse. And your spouse is not going to be happy about it. And your kids might be coming into money, at age 18 when they're not prepared for it. And, one happy party in that group, the kids, not the spouse. And it actually could put the spouse in a tough position.
Yep.
Now, if you have assets in joint tenancy, they go automatically to the spouse. If you have life insurance, it goes to the spouse. So not having a will doesn't control everything. But and the will would name a guardian if you have minor children. Otherwise, the court will just
Yep.
pick someone and everyone will show up and fight over the kids or say none of us want them, one of the two. The powers of attorney, if you're more likely to become incapacitated than you are to die. I mean, one will happen before the other.
Yep.
And so having a power of attorney for medical care and for property, these are basic documents. They're not necessarily very expensive to have basic ones. but everyone should have at least those things. Then beyond that, if you've got more significant dollars, putting aside estate tax, millions of dollars is millions of dollars. You may want it going into trust for your children to protect them so they
Mhm.
don't come into the money at 18 or 21. Maybe they come into it later on with their brother or sister as their trustee. And then as you get into much bigger numbers, they need to be thinking about, if they care, about estate taxes. Like
Yeah.
some clients, hey, they'll pay the taxes, it's free money to them. Most people don't feel that way. They say, well, I'd rather not have half of it go to the government.
Yeah.
What can we do about that?
Mhm. Well, I'm glad you brought up estate taxes. Because it's crazy. I'm about to say that there's a very important date in 7 short months. It's crazy that the end of this year is in 7 short months. But I hate saying that, but January 1st, 2026 marks a very important date for estate planning, and that's the rollback of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 when um, the exemption or the estate tax exemption was 13.99 million. Well, that's going to be rolled back, I believe, in half, correct?
That's
Are
right.
people prepared for this? How can financial advisors help with their clients prepare? I don't see much being talked about this, and I think it's a pretty important piece that in the overall puzzle here.
Yeah, I see a lot about it, but that's because I
Yeah.
do what I do, so I tend to see those things and let people know. And I think most financial advisors have done a great job telling clients, here's the exemption. Just quick background. So the gift and estate tax exemption, it's the same thing, was set at $5 million back in 2010, 2011, plus
Okay.
inflation adjustments.
Mm.
And at this point in time, it would be just under 14, or just under 7 million with all the inflation adjustments over all that time period. But in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, it was doubled. So now it's just under 14 million.
Yep.
And that's going to expire at the end of this year. So it'll be back down to 7. There is the proposal in the House right now to bring it up to 15 next year
Okay.
and make it permanent and index it for inflation. But until they pass that, it doesn't matter. It's just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So yes, people that are able and willing, two different requirements in my view, should be using that exemption. I try to look at it as forget the fact that it may be expiring. This
Okay.
is either a good thing for you to do because you have the funds, you face estate taxes, it's not going to make you destitute. You're willing to give it away to use some or all of that exemption. That's a general principle of estate planning. If you have exemption, giving away $1 million today and getting out of your estate to grow and compound for the rest of your life is better than waiting till death and leaving
Yeah.
a single $1 million where the rest is subject to tax. So you should do that.
Mhm.
And whether or not it's expiring, that either makes sense for you or it doesn't. If it doesn't, you shouldn't run out in December and quick, let's make a gift because we're going to beat the tax man. I tell people, look, you could give all of your income to charity, you'd save a lot in taxes, but
Yeah.
you don't because you need that money. And so, same principle follows here. There are many that have been sitting around objectively. They should give this away. This makes no sense. Um,
Okay.
and they should just get it done and don't call me in November because everyone else will be too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And you make a good point. It really probably just starts with planning, right? Planning now, if you haven't had these conversations with financial advisors or your financial advisor haven't had conversations with clients or getting people like you involved, start planning now. So then you don't come to December and be like, oh, we got to give this money away or whatever, like you said.
That's right. In many cases, clients decide, yeah, I do want to make a gift. I'm able to make a gift. And I'm going to give away $5 million today. It's under if it expires, it'll still be 7. So it's not something they couldn't do next year anyway. But that's fine. Then that's the right answer for that client. And you should do that today. Don't wait. There's
Yeah.
no benefit to waiting.
Yeah. And I don't have the numbers, but I'm sure with the market appreciation over the past few years and then real estate appreciating, there's a lot of people out there that have well above that, 14, $15 million.
Yes, there are. I try to keep perspective that it's still 0.1% of the population, but it's a 0.1 is a big number when you're, 350 million
Yep.
people. And uh, yes, there are a lot of people that are well over that number, a lot of people that are just at that number. They're almost the hardest ones. If someone's worth 14 million, look, it might go down. So today there's no tax, but tomorrow there would be, and I don't want to do that. Okay, but you're worth 14 million. What's your age? What's your spending? If you're 90 years old, yes, give it away. You're not going to need all 14, I don't think. If you're 64, hopefully you got a long way to go. Do you really want to give away, several $1 million, just to try to beat? And the only way to take advantage is if it goes from 14 to 7, the only way to take advantage is giving away more than 7. Because if you give away 6 and then it drops to 7, okay, you have one left. You didn't get to use anything extra. You got to give away more than 7 to take advantage of this current law.
Interesting. Are there any other legislative changes that, that's a big one that we might hear most about that maybe we don't talk enough about with and when it comes to estate planning that maybe is in the works?
Um, the state tax laws are a big political football. There's always something being bandied about. If
Yeah.
you look in any given year, there's proposals to raise the estate tax, lower the exemption, including this year. There's proposals to repeal the estate tax. There's proposals to change the exemption to 15 million. So it's all over the place, and which makes it by definition, it's a long-term issue, and we
Yeah.
can't these short-term debates. So I tell people, you just got to keep your eye on the ball. What is the current law? That's what we need to work with. There's been proposals to basically outlaw certain types of planning that we can currently do. Um, okay, if it's something that you should be doing, you should do it today. If they change the law next year, then we can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But it becomes very difficult to try to plan for everything they may or may not pass. So you'll just end up doing nothing.
Yeah. And the, a financial advisor, they got to, keep abreast of so many different things. So it's again goes back to kind of the theme of this whole conversation, work with estate planners, estate attorneys like yourself. So a financial advisor doesn't have to worry so much about it, right? And focus because it is like a moving puck.
Right. Yeah. Lean on us. We'll lean on you. If the client needs financial advice, we're going to send them your direction.
Yep.
If they need our advice, we'll send them ours. We can chip in a little bit of, hey, you should talk to someone. And we can help in that process, but let the experts do their job.
Fantastic. Well, with that, David, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. It was a real pleasure to have you on. For those financial advisors or individual clients or individuals want more information about the Trust and Estates Practice Group at Kirkland and Ellis, where can they get that information from?
You can reach out to me. You can look online on the Kirkland Ellis website. My contact info is there.
Awesome, David. David Handler of Kirkland and Ellis. Thank you very much for coming on the show. It was a lot of fun. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Zephyr's Adjusted for Risk podcast. You can watch all of our other podcasts on the Zephyr YouTube channel as well as on Spotify. Thank you very much. And please be sure to subscribe to that Zephyr YouTube channel. Thank you and have a great rest of your week. David.